Man, you better soak this team in. I mean, what a run that they are on since mid-December. Haven't lost. They avenged that loss from December against Nebraska this weekend. They look really good. They look like a true national title contender. Exciting times in Champaign and for Illinois fans across the country. A lot to talk about this week because they got another one coming this weekend. They beat Nebraska. It's another top 5 road win. We're going to peek around the country at a couple of games, and we've got standings, Big Ten, and the most recent AP poll as Illinois jumps after that Nebraska win. We've got Northwestern and Michigan State previews, and then we have to mention that Aaron Henry is leaving the football program. But let's get straight into it. Illinois, Nebraska. This game was Sunday afternoon, 78-69. Illinois does it again. That's 2 road wins against top 5 teams in back-to-back weekends. They've got a third coming up, but we're focusing on this one. Look, I thought this was a little bit of a struggle in the first half. I thought Illinois kind of seemed like they were running in sand, so to speak. The shots just weren't really falling. They were 4 of 14 from 3 in that first half against Nebraska. That place was rocking. It was a whiteout. Nebraska looked like they were in position to do it once again against Illinois. It kind of felt like mid-December all over again. Like, man, are we going to do this again against this team? And it felt exactly the same because Price Sanford was going crazy once again. He came out hot, hit a few threes to open that game. He had 14 points in the game. 12 of them came in the first half. And as you can see, hit a bunch of threes. He was the guy that Illinois had to worry about in this game yet again because he was the guy that killed them at the State Farm Center back in December. Illinois went to the zone a little bit there in the first half. I don't know if it was because of Price Sanford getting hot again, but I thought it had its moments. But overall, I didn't think it was overly effective because when teams can shoot over the zone, there's not much that you can do. And that's what Nebraska was really doing well. Brandon Frager came back in this game and shot the lights out really the whole game. And when you can shoot over the zone, it's really not going to be as effective as you want it to be. They were 11 of 20 from behind the three-point line in the first half. It was an incredible shooting half from Nebraska. And yet I think they were only up 6 at halftime, but they ended the half on a 14-2 run. So you kind of went into that second 20 minutes thinking, man, it kind of just feels like Nebraska has Illinois' number. But then Keaton Wagler did it again. This guy is just – there's so few things left for me to say about how impressed I am with Keaton Wagler as a freshman thrown into the fire, really, and not because of necessity, but because of how good he was in the offseason. And then Kylan Boswell goes down, and he has to pick up his play even more, and he's doing just that. He was 5 of 6 from the floor in the second half, 3 of 4 from behind the three-point line, and had 23 of his 28 in the second half when they needed it. It's just an incredible run that he's on. Is he going to win the Big Ten Player of the Year? He might. I think he's the front runner right now. Is he a first-team All-American? That might be harder to crack, but like I say, he's playing at an unbelievable clip right now that it feels like how long can he keep this up? But there's no reason to believe that it's going to stop anytime soon. We'll get another tester on Saturday against Michigan State, and we'll see how he can handle that. But at this point, Keaton Wagler is on the way. I think he's close to being a top 5 draft pick in this upcoming NBA draft. I think he's got a chance to win Big Ten Player of the Year. I think he's got a chance to be a first-team All-American, which is just incredible for a guy that was not highly recruited. They also shut down Price Sanford in the second half. We saw that he only had 2 points in the second half. He only took 4 shots. Brandon Frager, who 2 games before this one on Sunday was on the bench crying, holding his ankle, looking like it was going to be terrible. He came back. He scored 20 off the bench. they survived that onslaught from Frager. The other thing that I liked about this game, outside the second half, the run, Illinois' shots just were falling a little bit better, and they really compressed Nebraska defensively. They brought back the big man lineup. I've been clamoring for this big man lineup to make more appearances, and they brought it back. Most of the time, it was these guys. It was Wagler, Hummerkaus, Merkovich, and then the Ivasic twins. That's what it was most of the time. I think we got a little bit of Stojakovic instead of Hummerkaus in there, but it was an impressive lineup. It's just, look at these heights there on the list. I don't know what you can do if you're an opposing team to, A, try to stop it defensively, or B, try to score on it, because there's so much length that it's such an advantage. The size that Illinois has is such an advantage over pretty much any team in the country, pretty much any team in the Big Ten, save maybe Purdue and maybe Michigan. I want more. I want more of this big man lineup. Man, just another impressive road victory for Illinois against a top 5 team on Sunday afternoon. Here's Brad Underwood postgame.
I think we're resilient. I think we're holding our poise. I think our purpose has been growing. I think our connectivity has been growing. I think that we've been playing offense at a pretty good clip, and it's been different things. It's, tonight we didn't shoot the ball great, and so we got layups, we got to the foul line, but you only win on the road if you can guard at a certain level and rebound at a certain level, and I think that's the one thing we've been able to do, at least in those last couple.
It was a worry for me early on this season about what they would be able to do if they couldn't hit the 3 ball. They couldn't really do it in the first half. It got a little bit better in the second half, but as you heard from Brad Underwood, he's right. They got to the rim really well when those threes weren't falling. So those worries, at least from me, are a little bit more diluted now. We'll see when they face a far better defensive team than Nebraska is. Nebraska's no slouch defensively, but they're not tops in the country, and Illinois' got a couple of those coming up here. AP poll, it came out Monday. It was February 2nd. Look at Illinois, up 4 spots into the top 5. There are, 4, 5 Big Ten teams in the top 12. They've already beaten Purdue at 12. They've beaten Nebraska at 9. They got Michigan State on Saturday. I think this is the right spot for Illinois. I don't think you can really put them above any of those 4 above them right now, but hey, they keep winning, why not? But I think 5 is right. I thought 9 last week was a little bit low. Beat Nebraska again on the road. They deserve to be in the top 5 right now. All right, hey, we got some big games as always this weekend, this end of the week here coming up. This one is Friday night at Madison Square Gardens. UConn on the road taking on St. John's. The question really in the Big East is, can anybody catch UConn? St. John's is in second right now, but UConn just seems like a runaway freight train in that league. It's been a pretty weird year for St. John's. I thought they have it going a little bit now. They've won 8 in a row. On the other side, UConn hasn't lost since November, so there's that. Can Zuby Ejiofor for St. John's get on a roll? I mean, I think to win this game for the Johnnies, he's going to have to take over. He's going to have to be really, really impressive for the Johnnies to have really a chance. I do think the Garden for a game like this is going to be awesome, and the Garden's always great, especially when St. John's in town for a big-time matchup. But you got the UConn fans coming in there, too. It's not a far drive. This is going to be a fun one. Everybody that's watched college basketball the last few years knows who Alex Karaban is for UConn. He's not their leading scorer. He probably is their go-to guy, but he's not their lead dog, I would say, this year. But he is their most efficient scorer. He can create his own shot off the dribble. I think he's 6'6", 6'7". and he is really good at catch and shoot. Zuby Ejiofor is a little bit more of the back-to-the-basket type of forward, but he does really run the floor well, up and down, defense to offense really quickly. So he's an exciting player in that right, too. I think this is going to be a really fun one on Friday night at the Garden. Man, I'm going to have to see it to believe it for St. John's. I know they've gotten rolling a little bit, but UConn, it seems like they're as close as maybe anybody, save Arizona, to locking up a number 1 seed in March. They look great. Solo Ball has been great at point guard. The Garden's going to be rocking, but someone is going to have to prove to me that they can beat UConn in the Big East. I'm going to take UConn, even though it's on the road, even though it's going to be a tough environment. I'll take the Huskies to win, keep it rolling. Like I said, they haven't lost since November. And guess what that loss was? It was a 4-point loss to Arizona, who's still undefeated and the number 1 team in the country. Hard to imagine that somebody else can take them down, but weird things happen all the time, and it wouldn't be shocking if St. John's won. They're a very good basketball team. In the ACC, Duke, North Carolina, Saturday at 5:30. It's 2 of the best freshmen in America. It's one of the best rivalries in college sports, certainly in college basketball. I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. This game has lost a little bit of its luster in my eyes because the Coach K, Duke Blue Devils were always, at least to me, the ones that you wanted to see go down to North Carolina. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people that don't like North Carolina, and for good reason, I'm sure. But I think it's lost a little bit of that. But this is a great matchup, and North Carolina's been down for a couple of years, at least relative to Duke. They're back in the top 15. They got them at home this time. This one is going to be fun, I think. North Carolina's stumbled a couple of times in the last month. That has to be noted. Duke crushing everyone. But it's 2 of the best freshmen that I mentioned in the country. Cameron Boozer, I think, is going to win the National Player of the Year award. He looks like it every single time he steps onto the floor. Even behind the three-point line, he doesn't take a ton of them, but when he does, he hits them at a really high clip. He is so efficient, and he's a very good passer, too, which is a little bit underrated about him. Unbelievable season from Cameron Boozer. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft because he probably doesn't have the upside that some of the other guys have, like Darren Peterson or A.J. DeBonsa, but he's going to win the National Player of the Year, at least as it's going right now. Caleb Wilson for North Carolina doesn't get talked about nearly as much, but I think he's probably a lottery pick in the NBA draft if he decides to come out, which I don't see why he wouldn't. He's having a great season, almost 20-10. And like I said, North Carolina has been searching for somebody to try to push that program forward and help them get back to where they were a few years back in year 1 of a new coaching staff. Can they get back to the Sweet 16, Elite 8? Maybe they can with a guy like Caleb Wilson. He's old school. He's a forward. He's back to the basket. Come try and stop me. I hope these 2 match up their offense, defense on both sides because it'll be a fun watch. I don't think I'm going to overthink this one. I do think Duke is just better. They've got so many guys around Cameron Boozer. They've got his brother who's a torch from the outside, and they've got a lot of length and shooting ability when he gets doubled. It's hard to try to double Cameron Boozer when he's down on the block or in that free throw line area because he's a really good passer and his guys around him will knock down shots. Not going to overthink it. I think Duke's better. I think they'll win the basketball game. But again, Duke Carolina, you never know. You never know what's going to happen in these games, especially with the game at the Smith Center in Chapel Hill. North Carolina, they've got something in the tank, and that crowd's always wild when Duke comes to town. We're going to talk about what Illinois has coming here this week. But before we do that, let's take a check at the Big Ten standings. Illinois is now tied for first in the Big Ten with Michigan, both 10-1 in the league. They've already beaten The third and fifth place teams in the Big Ten in Nebraska and Purdue, they've got a shot to beat Michigan State this weekend, so they could beat the three teams directly behind them. And guess what? Michigan comes to Champaign February 27th. Mark that date down. That game could have huge implications for not only NCAA tournament seeding, but the Big Ten race, Big Ten tournament seeding. We will find out as we get closer to that. Wednesday night, tonight, if you're watching Wednesday, 8 p.m. in the State Farm Center, Illinois welcomes in their rival Northwestern Wildcats. Remember, about a month ago, this game up in Evanston was tight into the really middle half of the second half. Illinois was taking some blows from Northwestern, and Kylan Boswell, especially in the first half of that game, played a big role. He kind of kept them above water, had a couple of big shots, and that one where his arm got hacked and he still put it in. Really impressive performance from Kylan Boswell. They don't have him this time. We've seen him play without Kylan Boswell to know that shouldn't be as much of a worry as maybe you might think it is on the outside looking in. Jaden Reed for Northwestern came off the bench in that game, scored 28. He was a big reason why Northwestern was in that game into the later points of that second half. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Nick Martinelli a little bit later, who you're seeing here just make a play. But this game was a little bit back and forth. Illinois needed a couple of big shots at the end to really put Northwestern away in the final minutes. I think it was a couple of Tommy threes that really ended up making the difference for Illinois up in Evanston. They get them at home this time, so you hope that maybe there's a little bit of an extra advantage there for Illinois, so they don't have to play too deep into the game, into a tight game. But yeah, I think, as always, as like it was about a month ago, we're not really worried about Jaden Reed. We're worried about Nick Martinelli because he scores 20 every single game. He scored 20 against Illinois. I thought it was a quiet 20 against Illinois, but he still scores 20 every single game. I think he's scored 20 points in 17 of his last 20 games, something like that. I don't have it written down here, but he's averaging well over 20 points per game this year. He's always going to get to that clip. I think for Illinois, if he scores 20, you're going to be fine because that's what he does. If he scores 30 or 35, that's when you're probably really, really concerned, especially if you get another game from somebody like Jaden Reed who scores another 20, 25. That's when you start to be worried. But again, it's one guy, maybe two guys that you have to be concerned with for Illinois. For Northwestern, you got to be concerned with 6 guys on Illinois' team because they can all fill it up. I don't think Illinois didn't look past the teams in the middle of the week, the last couple of weeks, knowing that they had top 5 road trips coming on the weekend. I don't think that's going to change this week. I think Illinois is just a far better team than Northwestern. So tonight, they win. And I think they win somewhat comfortably against Northwestern at home. I just don't think Northwestern's good enough to take advantage, even if Illinois comes out and sleepwalks through a lot of the first half and maybe into the second half. I just don't think Northwestern's good enough. That being said, if Martinelli ends up on the stat sheet with 38 and 8, it might have been a long night for Illinois. The big one. Saturday night in East Lansing, third straight top 10 team on the road for Illinois in the last 3 weekends. It's the last of the brutal stretch. Not that it gets easier after tonight or after Saturday night, but it's the last of the absolutely brutal stretch that Illinois has been on. And guess what? They're still undefeated, at least on that stretch. 2 guys to key in on for Michigan State. Starts with Jeremy Fears at point guard. Nearly 15 and 9 he's averaging on the season. He's in the National Player of the Year conversation. I think he's probably in the top 5 for National Player of the Year. Everything runs through him. He's probably not going to torch you himself, but you can see with the assist numbers, he's a really good passer, an outstanding passer. And I know his three-point percentage is not good, but if he's left open at the end of the game and he needs to hit a shot, he's the kind of guy that will bury it. And you'll be sitting there like, how this guy hasn't hit a shot all night from out there. But he does in the big-time moments. And he gets to the rim incredibly efficiently. I mentioned the three-point percentage. It's another good thing for Illinois. He's only shooting 17% from 3 in Big Ten conference play. So even worse. And you go look back at his numbers, he's not that bad of a shooter. Last year, at least, he shot, I think, 36% from 3 for the season. It's kind of a weird thing that he's going through this extended period of a slump. But he's also the best in the Big Ten at drawing fouls. He draws at like 7.5 fouls per game, which is a lot. The good thing for Illinois there is that they don't foul, really, anybody at all. Inside, it's Jackson Kohler that you got to have your eyes on. He's a lob threat. He crashes the glass really effectively. He grabs about 13% of Michigan State's misses on offense, which is a high number. It's top 5 in the Big Ten for rebounding. He will step out. He'll hit some outside shots. If you're not strong on your switches, if you're not strong on your rotations defensively, he will make you pay from the outside. And then if you shade him too much, he becomes that lob threat that we talked about. So it's a lot to try to manage defensively for Illinois, but they're playing really good defense here in the last month or so. And it's not like he's got a size advantage over anybody. They've got 2 7-footers plus that they can send out there and put on him. So I'm not concerned about the size aspect of it at all. As a team, Michigan State has one of the best defenses in the country. They are scrappy. They'll pick the ball on you. They'll make you work for every shot. Now, the good thing about that is that Illinois is used to having to run offense. They are one of the slowest paced teams in the country. But it becomes a problem when you face a defense of this caliber, when they make everything in the half court so difficult and you're not even willing or able to run and get some fast break points, which Illinois has not done all year against anybody. Nobody. Like I said, they're one of the slowest teams in the country on offense. Now, with that being said, they always get a good shot, it seems like. Every single possession's a good shot because they just swing it back and forth. They have really good action. They really pick on mismatches, and they do that really effectively. I don't feel great about this game for Illinois. Saturday night in East Lansing, that place is a tough place to play most of the time. And a Saturday night game, I think, adds to that. I don't feel great about it. But not picking against Illinois right now. There's no reason for me to think that they can't do it again. I think this might be the best team of the 3 that Illinois has played, as in Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan State. I think Michigan State might be the best team. But I'm not picking against Illinois right now. No way. Not with Keaton Wagler playing the way that he's playing. I think it's going to be an awesome watch, though. I think Illinois wins it. I think they pull it out at the end. But it should be a really fun one. A little concerned if the shots don't fall early in this one, like Nebraska, because of Michigan State's defense. So got to see some go in there in the first half for Illinois, I think, is the key. Let's take a look at some upcoming games after this week. You see Northwestern, Michigan State. Look, it does not get easier as you start with Wisconsin on February 10th. It doesn't get easy at all. But Wisconsin, middle tier Big Ten team. Indiana, better than middle tier in the Big Ten. And then they get the West Coast swing, which you never know how a team's going to handle that. They get a day at the beach. Maybe they're not locked out. Who knows? But the West Coast swing is a factor. It is a real thing to maybe just keep an eye on. And then they've got the big one, February 27th, Michigan in town at the State Farm Center. That game could be for the Big Ten championship regular season. We will see. It could be for a 1 seed. Never know. You never know if Michigan drops one more and it's between Michigan and Illinois who won the regular season game. It could very well end up being for a 1 seed in March. We can't end the show without mentioning that Aaron Henry is leaving the Illinois football program. So just want to make sure that we talk a little bit about that. He's leaving to go to Notre Dame. He's going to be the co-defensive coordinator and DB coach at Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans are like, oh, this is awesome. We plucked a sitting Big Ten defensive coordinator to be our co-defensive coordinator and coach the DBs. On the other side, Illinois fans, pretty much every single one that I've seen is happy that Aaron Henry is going. And I understand that. I do think his 3 years as defensive coordinator at Illinois were a bit of a disappointment, but he did develop a lot of good defensive backs. The Scots, Devin Witherspoon was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He did a lot of good things for Illinois. So I think it's a loss, maybe not defensive play calling wise, but it's a loss in your development because Illinois has said, Brett Bielema has said that we're a developmental program. So I think it's a loss there a little bit. But this is an important hire for Brett Bielema. It's a really important hire. I have no idea who they're going to go with. I wouldn't expect it to be an in-house hire, but you never know because Brett Bielema likes a lot of those guys on his defensive staff. So if there's somebody that he thinks he can move up into that role, much like he did with Aaron Henry, he'll do that. But I think it's an important hire because I think, at least in my mind, next year is a little bit of a transition year for Illinois football. A little bit, because we don't know what the quarterback is. There's a lot of question marks at wide receiver. There's some of that. There's not as many question marks on defense because they've plugged those holes. They've had guys that they're really confident in, and they've got guys coming back. So you need somebody that can steady the ship next year for Illinois. We will see what Brett Bielema decides to do, who he decides to hire, what that all looks like. I think here probably shortly because you don't have a ton of time before spring ball starts. You don't have a ton of time. There's not a lot of guys still sitting out there. I'm sure they'll pluck somebody from somewhere else. But it's going to be an interesting thing to see how Brett Bielema decides to handle that defensive coordinator spot. So good luck to Aaron Henry on his way to Notre Dame. That's it for our show. We got Michigan State to talk about again next week. We've been so blessed with top 5, top 10 games to talk about here every single week. We got another one next week. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday night right here on the W80 Now app. We'll see you next week.